We've come so far with these three, from desperation to hope, from strangers helping strangers to family choosing family, from a farm about to be sold to two homes standing side by side. 3 months. That's how long it's been since Mr. Huang got the keys to his place. 3 months of weekends spent hammering new roof tiles, painting walls white, building a gate in the shared fence. 3 months of Tu Tien's gourd vines climbing trellises, their leaves spreading green and hopeful. And now, the first gourds are here. Tu Tien's in the garden when she sees them, fat and pale green, hanging heavy from the vines. She calls to Jack, who's next door helping Mr. Huang repair the chicken coop. "Jack, come look!" He climbs through the new gate, the one he built with Mr. Huang, the one that connects their worlds, and stops when he sees what she's pointing at. "The seeds," he says softly, "the ones Dad brought. They grew," Tu Tien says, and her voice cracks a little. "They actually grew. It's such a small thing. Gourds on a vine. But it feels like proof. Proof that what they planted, not just seeds, but trust, family, hope, is bearing fruit." Jack's phone rings. He pulls it out, glances at the screen. His expression shifts. "It's the bank," he says. Tu Tien's stomach tightens. They've been making payments on Mr. Huang's loan. Regular, on time. Everything's been fine. So why would the bank call? Jack answers. "Hello? Yes, this is Jack." A pause. A meeting? About what? Another pause. Longer. Community agriculture project? I don't... He listens. "Mr. Huang recommended me?" His eyebrows rise. "When?" Yes, I can do that. Thank you." He hangs up slowly. "What was that?" Tu Tien asks. "The bank wants to meet with me, tomorrow. They said something about a community agriculture initiative. Government-backed. They're looking for local farmers to participate." He looks confused. "They said Mr. Huang recommended me specifically, that he's been talking to them about our farms." Tu Tien's mind races. Mr. Huang hasn't mentioned anything about this. What's he been planning? "Did they say what the project is?" she asks. "No, just that it's an opportunity, that they want to discuss it in person." They walk next door to ask Mr. Huang about it. Find him on his newly painted porch, arranging potted herbs, basil, lemongrass, mint. The house behind him is unrecognizable from 3 months ago. White walls, new roof, fresh paint on the shutters. It looks like a home now. Like permanence. "Dad," Jack calls, "we need to talk to you about something." Mr. Huang looks up, smiling. "Perfect timing. I was going to come find you both anyway. Come sit. I have news." They settle into the chairs he's built. Simple wooden ones, sanded smooth, painted the same white as the house. "The bank called me," Jack says. "About a meeting tomorrow. They mentioned your name." Mr. Huang's smile gets wider. "Ah, I was hoping they'd reach out to you." "What's this about, Dad?" Tu Tien asks. "It started a month ago," Mr. Huang explains. "I was at the bank making some transfers, got to talking with the manager. He mentioned that the government's rolling out a new program, support for small-scale community agriculture. Grants, low-interest loans for equipment, technical training." Jack leans forward. And I told him about us, about 2 neighboring farms, about how Tu Tien sells at the market, about how we're building something sustainable here. He got interested, asked if you'd be willing to meet with them, to potentially be part of a pilot program. Tu Tien's breath catches. A pilot program? They're looking for success stories, Mr. Huang continues. Small farms that are productive, sustainable, community-oriented. If we qualify, we could get funding for things like irrigation systems, greenhouses, better storage. Maybe even help marketing Tu Tien's market goods through cooperative channels. The implications settle between them like stones dropping into still water. "Why didn't you tell us?" Jack asks, but his voice isn't accusatory, just curious. "Because I didn't want to get your hopes up if nothing came of it. But now they're ready to talk, tomorrow. And I think..." Mr. Phuong pauses. "I think this could be something big for both our farms." That night, Tu Tien can't sleep. She keeps thinking about the gourds, about Mr. Phuong's White House, about 3 months of slow, steady building. And now this, a chance for something more. But also, she's scared. What if they don't qualify? What if the bank looks at their small operation and decides it's not impressive enough? What if this is just another door that opens only to close? Jack finds her in the garden at dawn, checking on the gourds again. "Couldn't sleep either," he asks. "I keep thinking about the meeting, what they'll ask, whether we're ready." Jack crouches beside her, touches one of the gourds gently. "You know what Dad said once? That good things come to people who keep working, who keep planting seeds even when they're not sure they'll grow." "These grew," Tu Tien says. "They did, and so did we." The bank meeting is set for late afternoon. Mr. Phuong insists on coming with them. "We're in this together," he says. But first, there's something else. Mr. Phuong has invited them for dinner, the first real meal in his completed house. He's been planning it for days, he says. Wants to celebrate the house being finished, wants to mark the moment. And, he adds, almost shyly, "I invited someone else too." "Who?" Tu Tien asks. "Your niece, Ni. She called last week asking about you. I thought it would be nice for her to see how well you're doing." Tu Tien's eyes fill with tears. Ni. The little girl who used to visit sometimes before everything got complicated. The one bright, innocent thread connecting Tu Tien to her old life. "She's coming?" Tu Tien whispers. "This evening, before dinner. She wants to see the farms, both of them." Ni arrives just as the afternoon light turns golden. Tu Tien hears the car first, then sees her, a small figure climbing out, looking around with wide eyes. She's grown since Tu Tien last saw her, taller, but still with that same curious, open face. "Auntie," Ni calls and runs. Tu Tien catches her in a hug, and something in her chest that's been tight for months finally loosens. "Look at you," Tu Tien says, pulling back to see her properly. "You've gotten so big." "Grandpa Phuong said you have a farm now," Ni says, "with vegetables and everything. Can I see?" So they show her. First, Tu Tien's farm, the vegetable plots, the drying racks for winter melon, Kai sleeping in the shade. Ni runs from plant to plant, asking questions. "What's this? How do you grow that? Can I help water them?" Then through the gate to Mr. Phuong's place. Ni stops when she sees the White House. "Grandpa, you painted it. It's so pretty now." "You should have seen it 3 months ago," Mr. Phuong says, laughing. "It was blue and falling apart. Jack and I fixed it up." "And Auntie helped too?" Ni asks. "Every weekend," Tu Tien confirms. "Painting, planting, building." They show Ni the fruit trees, mango, guava, jackfruit, the herbs on the porch, the chicken coop Jack rebuilt, the well in the center where Mr. Phuong now grows lotus flowers in a large pot. "It's like a storybook," Ni says softly. 2 farms next to each other, 2 families being neighbors. Mr. Phuong and Tu Tien exchange glances, out of the mouths of children. "That's exactly what it is," Mr. Phuong says. "A story, and you're part of it now too." They eat dinner on Mr. Phuong's porch as the sun sets. Simple food, rice, grilled fish, vegetables from both gardens. Ni chatters about school, about her friends, about a drawing she made that won a prize. But then she goes quiet, looking at the three adults. "Auntie," she says carefully, "are you happy now? Really happy?" The question hangs in the air. Tu Tien thinks about where she was a year ago, in the mountain shack, alone, afraid, thinking she'd never have anything more than survival. And now, yes, she says, and means it. "I'm really happy." "Good," Ni says simply, "because Grandpa Phuong said you deserve to be happy, and I think so too." After Ni's parents pick her up, with promises to visit again soon, the three of them sit in the gathering dark. "We should talk about the bank meeting," Jack says. "It's in an hour. We need to be ready." "What will they ask us?" Tu Tien wonders. "Probably about our operations," Mr. Phuong says. "How much we produce, what we grow, what our goals are." "And what are our goals?" Tu Tien asks. It's Jack who answers. "To build something sustainable, something that lasts, something that helps the community." "Then that's what we tell them," Mr. Phuong says. The bank is quiet when they arrive, not the usual daytime bustle, just a manager waiting in a small conference room with papers spread across the table. He stands when they enter. "Mr. Phuong, Jack, and you must be Tu Tien. Please, sit." They do. The manager, his name is Mr. Tuan, doesn't waste time with small talk. "I'll be direct," he says. "The government's Community Agriculture Initiative is looking for pilot sites. Small-scale operations that demonstrate sustainability, community integration, and growth potential. Mr. Phuong suggested your two farms." "What exactly would this involve?" Jack asks. Mr. Tuan slides papers across the table. "A grant for infrastructure improvements, low-interest loans for equipment, access to agricultural extension services, training, technical support. In exchange, you'd agree to share your practices with other small farmers in the region. Become a demonstration site." Tu Tien's heart pounds. This is real. This is actually real. "What kind of infrastructure?" she asks. "Whatever you need most. Irrigation, greenhouses, storage facilities." The grant is flexible. You'd submit a proposal, and if approved, we'd fund it. "And the catch?" Jack asks, because he's an engineer and he knows there's always a catch. Mr. Tuan smiles. "No catch, just commitment. You'd need to maintain good practices, keep records, be willing to host visits from other farmers, and..." He pauses. "You'd need to work together. The program prioritizes cooperative operations, 2 farms, 1 shared vision." Mr. Phuong looks at Jack, then at Tu Tien. "We already do that." "I know," Mr. Tuan says. "That's why I'm recommending you." He pulls out another document. "I've been watching small farms in this region for 5 years. Most fail within 2. They're isolated, undercapitalized, no support network. But you 3, he gestures at them, you built something different. 2 properties, 1 family, shared resources, mutual support. That's exactly what this program wants to replicate." Tu Tien feels tears prick her eyes. They did build something different, without even realizing it. "There's one more thing," Mr. Tuan continues. "The program includes marketing support. If you're interested, we could help Tu Tien's market business scale up. Connect you with cooperative distribution channels, maybe even restaurants or specialty stores." Tu Tien's breath catches. Scale up? Your winter melon tea, your dried vegetables, the things you already make, but sold through established channels instead of just the local market. It would mean more income, more stability. Jack reaches under the table, squeezes Tu Tien's hand. "What do we need to do?" Mr. Phuong asks. "Submit a proposal. Tell us what you want to build, what you want to grow, how you want to serve the community. Mr. Tuan slides a form across the table. You have 2 weeks. Then we review it. If approved, funding starts within a month. They walk out of the bank in a daze. The evening air is cool. Stars are coming out. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks. Maybe Kai, wondering where they are. Did that really just happen? Tu Tien asks. I think it did, Jack says. Mr. Puong stops walking, turns to face them both. I need to say something, he begins. 3 months ago, you two gave me a home, not just property, a real home, a place to belong, a family to be part of. His voice shakes slightly. This, the bank, the program, the opportunity, I wanted to give something back. To help you build what you gave me. Tu Tien steps forward, hugs him. You already gave us everything. You saved the farm. You became our family. And now we get to build even more, Jack adds. Together. They stand there on the sidewalk outside the bank, 3 people who found each other through hardship and chose to stay together through hope. We should go home, Mr. Phuong says finally. Start planning what we want to propose. We have 2 weeks to dream big. Greenhouses, Tu Tien says immediately, so I can grow year-round. Better irrigation, Jack adds, so we're not dependent on rain. And maybe, Mr. Phuong says quietly, a small classroom space, where other farmers can come learn, where we can teach what we've figured out. They're already planning, already building, already thinking not just about themselves, but about what they can give back. That's what family does. 2 weeks later, they submit the proposal. It's 30 pages long. Jack wrote most of it. Detailed plans for irrigation systems, greenhouse specifications, cost breakdowns. Tu Tien contributed the section on expanding her market business, scaling production while maintaining quality. Mr. Phuong added the vision piece, the classroom space, the demonstration garden, the community teaching. Now they wait. The approval comes faster than expected. 1 week, Mr. Tuan calls personally. Congratulations, he says. Your proposal was exceptional. We're funding it fully. You can start immediately. The work begins the next Monday. Contractors arrive to install irrigation lines. A greenhouse company takes measurements. Jack spends evenings redesigning the layout of both farms to maximize the new infrastructure. Tu Tien experiments with winter melon recipes, preparing for larger scale production, but it's the classroom space that becomes the heart of everything. They build it together, the 3 of them, plus Uncle Dung and a few neighbours. A simple structure between the 2 farms, right at the fence line. Open air, with a covered roof. Benches made from recycled wood. A chalkboard salvaged from a closed school. This is where we'll teach, Mr. Phuong says, standing in the finished space. Where farmers can come learn what we learned. That you don't have to do it alone. That family and cooperation matter as much as soil and seeds. The first community gathering happens on a Saturday. 15 farmers show up, some curious, some skeptical, all desperate for something that works. They walk the farms, see the irrigation, touch the greenhouse walls, taste Tu Tien's winter melon tea. Then they sit in the classroom space, and Mr. Phuong tells their story. Not the sanitized version, the real one. He tells them about being homeless, about Jack facing bankruptcy, about Tu Tien ready to go back to a mountain shack, about how they were all broken in different ways until they found each other. The point isn't that we're special, Mr. Phuong says. The point is that we're not. We're just people who decided to help each other instead of face hardship alone. And that changed everything. One farmer raises his hand. But you had money. The land compensation. Not everyone has that. You're right, Mr. Phuong acknowledges. I had resources, But I could have used them differently. Bought a nice house in the city, lived comfortably alone. Instead, I chose to invest in family, in community, in something bigger than just me. Another farmer speaks up. What about the bank loan? How did you convince them? Jack takes this one. We didn't convince them of anything except that we were serious, that we had a plan, that we were willing to work together. The bank doesn't care if you're rich or poor. They care if you're committed. The questions continue, practical ones about irrigation costs, greenhouse maintenance, market channels. Tu Tien answers the ones about selling at markets, about building customer relationships, about turning small profits into steady income. As the gathering winds down, one farmer, an older woman named Mrs. Lan, approaches Tu Tien. I have a daughter, she says quietly. She's struggling, single mother, trying to farm a small plot. I'm going to tell her about this, about what you built. Maybe she needs to find her own family, like you did. Tu Tien takes her hand. Tell her to come next month. We'll help however we can. After everyone leaves, the three of them sit in the classroom space, exhausted but satisfied. That went well, Jack says. It did, Mr. Phuong agrees. But it's just the beginning. Good, Tu Tien says. I like beginnings. 3 months after that, 6 months total since Mr. Phuong bought his land, they harvest the first crop from the new greenhouse. Tomatoes. Perfect. Red. Abundant. Tu Tien takes a basket to the market, sells out in an hour, comes home with orders for twice as much next week. Jack's irrigation system works flawlessly. The farms that used to struggle in dry season now thrive year-round. Mr. Phuong's classroom space hosts gatherings every month. The group has grown to 30 farmers. Some have started cooperating with neighbours, sharing resources, building their own version of what Jack, Tu Tien, and Mr. Phuong created. One evening, as they're closing the gate between their farms, the gate that's always open now, that's more symbolic than functional, Mr. Phuong stops. You know what I'm grateful for? He says. Jack and Tu Tien wait. That I lost everything, because if I hadn't, I would never have found this. This? Tu Tien asks. Home, Mr. Phuong says simply. Real home, not a house, not property, but people who choose you, and you choose back. The evening settles around them. The farms are quiet except for Kai barking at something in the distance. The greenhouse glows softly in the fading light. The classroom space stands empty, waiting for next month's gathering. Everything they planted has grown. Not just vegetables, not just infrastructure, but something harder to name and more important than either. Trust, family, future. Come on, Jack says. Tu Tien made soup. We should eat before it gets cold. They walk toward Mr. Phuong's house together, because they still take turns hosting dinner, still gather around tables to talk about the day, still choose each other over and over. Inside, the table is set. 3 places. Simple food. Rice, vegetables from the garden, fish from the market, soup that smells like home. They eat slowly, talking about tomorrow's work, about the new farmer who's coming to visit, about Nai, who wants to spend next weekend helping in the greenhouse, about small, ordinary things that feel extraordinary because they're shared. After dinner, Tu Tien walks back to her farm under stars. She checks the greenhouse one more time, waters the seedlings, locks the gate. Not the one between their farms, that one stays open, but the outer gate that keeps the whole compound safe. Jack's waiting for her on their porch. Long day, he says. Good day, she replies. The best kind. They sit together in comfortable silence. Somewhere in the distance, they can see light in Mr. Phuong's window. He's probably reading or planning next month's gathering, or just sitting in his home that he built with family. You know what's funny? Tu Tien says. What? 6 months ago, we were about to lose everything, and now we have more than we ever imagined. Not funny, Jack corrects gently. Right. It's what was supposed to happen. Maybe he's correct. Maybe all of it, the desperation, the fear, the near loss, was just the path to this. To two farms standing side by side. To family that's chosen, not given. To a future built on cooperation instead of isolation. Tu Tien thinks about the gourd seeds Mr. Phuong brought that first day. How they've grown into vines heavy with fruit. How something so small can become something so abundant when planted in good soil and tended with care. That's what they did. Planted seeds, tended them, waited for growth, and now they're harvesting. Not just vegetables, not just success, but a life worth living. Together. I'm going to bed, Tu Tien says, standing. I'll be there soon, Jack replies. She pauses at the door, looks back at him, at the farm, at the light still glowing in Mr. Phuong's window. This is what all of it was for. The struggle, the sacrifice. The choice to keep trying when giving up would have been easier. For this, peace, family, home, and that was enough.